Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else listening, welcome back to Commissions Open Season 2. Character design for the set by Doida Flower on Twitter. Promotional art by Andromeda_Snow on Twitter. Icon created by Shy Starfall. Commissions Open logo created by Melodic Scavenger. And tonight's guest, the artist who made this podcast's very first piece of fan art, and now a very close friend of mine, it's MunchyBones. And here's your host, Doc Conrad. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Commissions Open, an interview podcast all about art in the digital age. Here you can hear the processes, stories, and lives of talented artists, voice actors, video creators, editors, musicians, and many other talented creators in the era of online work. I am your host, Doc Conrad, and today I have someone I've been I haven't been following for a long time, but we've talked for quite a bit. MunchyBones, hello, how's it going? How's it hanging?
Hi, it goes.
It
goes. It does.
It really do be going though. Not gonna lie. Hello, Munchy. This is this is really interesting. So I'm gonna tell them how I met you. Real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You were my first piece of fan art, and that's insane to me that I've made work that people will enjoy enough to be like, I gotta make fan art of this. What
I gotta draw this.
Yeah, that's weird for me. It's for me as a person, as a human being, I don't understand how anyone could like my thing so much that I'm a part of an artistic piece. But why don't you go ahead and describe how you found me and everything involved with that? I'd love to hear that, just because
Yeah. I found you primarily through TF2 Connect, where you had interviewed Short TV for the Team Fabulous 2 Reanimated. And I just thought, I was just stalking their Twitter, and I was just scrolling through, and I was like, oh, big thumbnail, and I just see this big old shout out from the people who managed that Twitter. And so I was like, okay, well, I ain't got nothing else to do, and I'm just drawing, so I'll just listen to it, because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately. Thought to shake it up, because I'm used to listening horror podcasts. So it was really nice. I started listening to it, and I was just drawing, and I was like, boy howdy, this is interesting. And I saw there was a whole bunch of different episodes. I think you just finished up episode 10 around the time that I found you. And so I just started listening to them, and that's when I think it was during that session that I just started drawing the fan art. Because I remember, just before I found you, I was getting to the off game and seeing that you had the Zachary icon. I was like, well, I guess I could draw it. I see nothing wrong with this.
Well, I guess
so I just started doodling.
This fits with what I was doing, so yeah.
Yeah, it lined it. I think I was drawing something off related when I found it. And I was just like, this is pretty cool. So I just started doodling, and then I was like, maybe I should try painting. So it was my first time doing an actual digital painting in a while. And so I just started messing around, and I did it, and then I posted it, and I added you, and I was like, hey, and then you interacted with it, and I was like, oh no, what? What? Because usually I'm just used to just posting things and just being kind of wiped off the face of the earth. Sort of thing. It just never happened, never brought up again. And also my Twitter's very inactive, but I saw that you're active on Twitter. And then you I don't know when you DM'd me, but it was pretty quick. I was just like, oh boy.
Yeah.
The entire time I'm freaking out with my friend. I was telling her all this, and I was like, what do I do? And she's like, you gotta answer. I'm like, do I though? And then I did, and I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, I let me go ahead and I think I DM'd you probably on it was probably something on Insta, maybe.
Oh no, you DM'd me almost immediately on Twitter saying thank you.
Oh,
And then we
okay,
just
yeah.
started talking about it. And then I shifted over to Instagram, started posting that stuff, and then kept shouting you out like a whole bunch and
Mm-hmm.
like just amping up. And I'm like telling all my friends, all my mutuals, everybody, I'm like, please listen to this. It's so cool. Please.
This feels like an advertisement for my own podcast. I love it. No, I'm kidding.
I'm
But
your
no,
your own personal hype gang.
yeah, I really do appreciate it. But no, it's like really interesting how like you sort of just like I don't know, it's just really cool, man. Like like I told you earlier before the podcast. I've never really had somebody ever make art based off of like based off of something that I've done. So when I wanted to
That's
go ahead and like,
appalling. You need
huh?
more.
Well, I mean, like
I'm going
if
to
you,
provide as much as I can.
uh, yeah,
I will feed you.
I appreciate it. No, but like, yeah, it's so heartwarming to see, like, because people don't tend to realize that, like, there's a lot that goes on with different creators, like especially those with big and small. Like, so when you're a very big creator, I'm guessing like fan art is like a really like nice heartwarming thing, but it goes away.
Mhm.
But it goes away. But as me for me being like such a small creator in this regard, like it means all the more like to me, because this is not only like my first experience with this sort of thing, but like that you're like really cool about it, and you were really nice to go ahead and talk with as well. It's just been like an absolute joy, like talking with you over the course of like these like past few like almost like, yeah, it's almost been like a full month since like we've like talked. And
Yeah.
I really
Like in
want,
3 days it'd be a month.
yeah, and I'm like, when that happened, I'm like, I've got to go ahead and like I've got to have you on the podcast. Like that's like the only logical thing for me, because like you're honestly like your art is like amazing, and like I want to go ahead
Oh.
and like discuss with that, like the not only like because like I mean, it does help that you made fan art of me, but when it, like
It does help a little.
it does help a little bit. But like your art's like really expressive and cool, and I love to go ahead and hear more about it. So, that being said, why don't you go ahead and talk a bit more about yourself and the work that you do? And we'll go ahead and start with like how you first got into creating art in the first place.
All right. So, fun story. When I was like 12 years old, or like in sixth grade, I got into a little thing called My Little Pony.
Ah.
And I remember that I would watch it like at 6 a.m. in the morning, like right before I went to school, and I thought it was pretty cool. It was either that or like Family Matters, and like nothing else was on. So of course my little 12-year-old brain was like pretty colors, cute ponies, bam.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I would like find images on my little like Kindle Fire tablet, and I would like draw them and I put them in my binder, and I thought it was so cool. I thought I was pimping when I went to school. And then the girl was like, "That's like for kids. Like, why do you like that?" And I remember like being really defensive about it. And I was like, "Well, that's not a nice thing to say. Like, Lana, hey dearie, I know you're really blunt, but that's not very nice."
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a nice transition to what I dealt with later on, drawing that stuff. I remember I would watch a bunch of like speed paints when I went to seventh grade and lived with my mom, and I would watch like specifically I think Geeky Blue Pony, and like their speed paints were like ages old, but I'd like binge watch them all the time, and like so much to the point that I think I mentioned it once to my mom, but then she ended up getting me a digital drawing tablet for like my 13th birthday, and that was peak level of excitement right there. And so I just drew and I drew and I drew and I kept pumping out these like random ass pony drawings onto DeviantArt. Then I made a few friends on there, and I just kept drawing, and it was great. Eighth grade hits. Uh, some drama happened. A guy from my school who quote unquote liked me found my DeviantArt and started like trash talking me on it, saying it's stupid. Like, why do you draw this? Like, why do you like this?
Mm-hmm.
And I kept blocking him, and then it was like a whole ordeal that he was just being creepy and blah blah blah. That's not important. That was like the only major bullying, was just him calling me like I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, so I'm
Oh
just
yeah,
gonna say B word, like F
you're
and B, whatever.
you're fine. You're fine with it. Yeah, I changed the censor thing a little bit ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he kept calling me a fucking bitch, and he's like 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, do you talk to your mother with that mouth? And he like was crying, and he like, I punched a hole in my wall for you, and I was like, that's your problem. Leave me
Oh my
alone.
god.
Um, but during that year, that's when I got into another little thing. That my one of my friends was aggressively trying to get me into. Just a little thing called Hitalia.
Yeah.
Uh, I still have old pictures that I'm very much ashamed of. Um, and I don't want to look. I don't want them to see the light of day ever again. But that's what got me into drawing like people. Well, not very far though, because then I kind of stopped for a little bit because I realized how much I sucked at drawing people when I was 13. So I just kept drawing like ponies and furries and stuff because that's just the natural transition, right? And then I remember in the later half of eighth grade, I remember kind of feeling a little secluded with my like teacher and like other classmates would talk about like South Park and crap, and I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking about because
Mm-hmm.
my mom refused to let me look at it because she
Mm-hmm.
hated that show so much. And then I found out that you could pirate things pretty easily. Uh, Started watching that. Then I drew South Park, and I got into Tumblr, which is hell on earth. 0 out of 10 would not recommend, but whatever. I got friends from that actually. After drawing the South Park, I got into like an ass blog with like what I call them my OG squad now because
Mm-hmm.
they're so sweet and we've been like together since my like freshman year of high school, which is very awesome. I love them. Shout out to Miles, Tab, and Noah. They're great. They made my life a little bit less like hell,
Mm-hmm.
just a little. um, and it's just like kind of like the like obscene sort of like realization that if I draw fan art, I get friends. Like people want to interact with me. So let me just keep doing that, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
just kept doing it. And I did that for a while. And I think I just switched a little bit back and forth between like Marvel and some other video games. And I remember just it was great. Uh, a lot of interaction was awesome because I don't get too much interaction because we got that hashtag wonderful social anxiety, right? We love that disorder.
Mm-hmm.
It can suck my toes. I remember specifically in December 2018, I got into this is actually kind of a little game, kind of indie game, Sally Face. I don't know if you know it, but I do, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And I drew a bunch of stuff, and I got into. It's so weird having like small fandoms and being like kind of like on the bigger end because you draw it a lot, and then like have drama happen because you drew a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm gonna be real. I drew like Sal and his friend Larry because we love LGBT representation. I'm LGBT and I want that representation. And this was like before Chapter 4 came out, where it was like, oh, their parents end up marrying when like in their late 20s, and people went on me hard for that. They just went, and I was on flop accounts. I was just
Mm-hmm.
it was horrifying. It was like really mortifying, just like trying to like go to my little like 3 to 8 job at Taco Bell and having to deal with that before my shift starts. And I kept just like, please leave me alone. And I end up privatizing a lot of things, just so many things, because people were like horrible about it. Like, also, like ship wars would happen if I drew like anything else. If I drew like Dal and his actual primary love interest, Ash. I love Ashley. Don't get me wrong. I love her to death. Like me and my friend, when we both got into it, she also had the same problem. Like people were insane.
Mm-hmm.
If you drew one thing, these people get mad. If you drew another thing, these people get mad. And it's absolutely nuts. So it's just kind of like we both want nothing to do with it anymore. Which sucks because that's where I got most of my followers from, was from drawing that.
Mm-hmm.
I got like, I think like a good like maybe 2,000 just from drawing Sally Face. And it's kind of disheartening to see like how awful people are. Or how much like people like would steal your art. I had a lot of people like repost my art and not credit me, which is a new experience for me altogether because I never had that happen before. And it's like, how do you approach this? Like
Mm-hmm.
most of them speak Russian. I can't speak Russian.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of most of the time I just kind of let it go and I'll just like save it to my repost folder because like people like send it to me. Or I even had somebody rip not even a good photo that I drew and they posted on Redbubble that they like kind of drew over and they're like selling it for like t-shirts and stuff. And I remember somebody on Twitter like sending me something saying like, hey, like I saw this person like repost your art. Like, can you like give me some like proof that like, just so I can show Redbubble that you're the original artist and you don't want that's not you. And I was like, yeah, of course. And it's still up.
Mm-hmm.
Redbubble hasn't done nothing. So like whatever. I don't think they're making much of a profit off of that. But it's just wow. And I remember fandoms are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird knowing that that's actually like how similar it is with the My Hero stuff. Like there's so many wars between people and it just kind of sucks. Like why can't people just be chill? And it's horrible just
Mm-hmm.
seeing like because like even if I've just also noticed that if I don't draw fan art, my like algorithm or like my statistics just like drop.
Mm-hmm.
Same with like I have a little YouTube channel. I don't post on it anymore because like people don't care. I used to draw a lot of musical fan art, and it was great. And then like I would like every time I post like something like maybe for like an older musical that I like Little Shop of Horrors, like nobody cares. It's like unless you're drawing like Dear Evan Hansen or Be More Chill, nobody cares. And like I don't even know what's going on now, but like okay. So I just kind of don't bother anymore. I try so hard, but I don't get very far.
Hey, and this is the most important part. In the end, it doesn't even matter because guess what? Your art is still very quality, and that's what's most
Thank you.
important. The important bit that like I realize that, and this especially comes with like you are a very young artist, and you've got yourself heavily invested in sort of these like fandoms that you've like established yourself in and making fan art of
Mhm.
like these characters, and it's important to go and have those sort of connections that you have within them because they're people who share similar interests, of course. Like those are the people you want to go ahead and like interact with and enjoy. But what's most important is that like you're working on your own individual art, and despite the fact that it may not get as many like interactions or clicks, what's most important is
Oh
that you're
yeah,
working.
I
You're
know it's
work.
not important,
Yeah,
but
I
it
know
it does give a good little feeling to see like oh people
exactly.
like they like me for art and not just because I draw fan
Mm-hmm.
art.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what like that's the validation I want is
Yeah.
that people actually enjoy my stuff and not like oh that's not fan
Mm-hmm.
art. It's like whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's actually another thing like about fan art. I love drawing fan art. Don't get me wrong, but also I feel like it kind of hindered like because I've been drawing it for like that's like all I draw now outside of like maybe commissions or like stuff for my friends. I feel like it's like kind of hindered my creativity a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause, like I can't really take myself like I can draw designs, I can draw like AUs, but I can't bring myself to like make my own content
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can do like things for school, I can just like do paintings. I just want to like visibly see on my wall, but I can't like make something for myself and just expand upon it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm making a
Yeah.
character for a new campaign I'm in. I can't share nothing about it because I know my friend's gonna hear this and I'm not supposed to tell her anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a ride. It's been like 2 weeks and I have like a little bit about him, but I'm just my brain can't like focus on one thing. It's like I want to
Mm-hmm.
think about so many other things. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm like doing him and I'm like, wait a second, he reminds me of Ellis from Left 4 Dead. Scrap that. I gotta redo it.
Mm-hmm. Let me go ahead and give you a little bit of some advice I can go ahead and give you.
Hmm.
The the main thing that that you have to realize is that your first off like your work has always been and continues to be quality. It is very good. I enjoyed a lot. And it's always reaffirming to have somebody tell you that like in person because I know sometimes like
Yeah.
seeing those comments is great, but like being able to unhear that is what's most important. So let's go ahead and start from there. Your art is wonderful and fantastic no matter what it is you draw. It's just the amount of people that have had a previous connection before in which they see it and then they're like, "Oh, that's that character," and they look good. I like it. The only reason why they don't see it otherwise is because they're not familiar with that form of artwork, and that's like understandable, and it's difficult to go ahead and like wrap your head around. However, what's most important for you to know is that like your work is quality, and that's like we need to start off from that first baseline. Now let's go ahead and talk a bit about like in terms of your own creativity. I've learned from multiple artists that there is no such thing, that there is no such thing as like stealing an idea. Like there's like you can
Oh yeah, it's been done so many times before. Like there's no.
exactly. There's no real way to go ahead and go about it. So being able to take inspirations from different sort of like things that you've seen and things that you enjoy is totally fine and totally okay. And having a totally original idea, I would give you like $1 million if you like created something that like no one has ever thought of before. Like there's just been enough people in human history where it's like that task is nearly impossible at this point. But what's most important is that the character that you make is something that you can fully express, make into your own, and shift it in a way that you enjoy. Of course, there's going to be parts that are relatable in terms of like yourself and to other people, because you're human. Like that's the whole thing. Like the connection between the art that you see and the art that you see between like each other is like, that's the relatability factor of like people can understand these characters and the feelings they have and the way that you can go ahead and like understand. Like it's important to go ahead and be like, I want to be original, and there are things that which you can do that will like make them original with like different scenarios they've experienced or different ways that they act or all those sort of things. But you can go ahead and make that yourself. And like there of course there might be an issue of like, oh, but this is just X, this is just Y. But no, it's your spin on it, and that's what's most important and beautiful about the art in which you make.
Man, I'm like nodding and I'm like on the verge of tears, bro. I've always like kind of grown up as like the child that's like, I want to exceed at everything. Like I want validation. I want so much. I think it's because I grew up as an only child. It's like it's nice hearing from like teachers and like their approval of like my technical skill, especially now that I'm in college and I'm taking art classes, and I kind of feel bad because I don't really try as hard in them. Because it's like, oh, just draw a still life and like shade it and render it, or like, oh, I'll do like your fit self-portrait of the year. Like it's just, I just kind of like, school stuff does not matter to me because I don't find it challenging, and I'm just kind of like, I need validation that like actually means something to me. Like school used to means like a lot to me, like for like I don't know, English papers or like history or something like that. But nowadays it's kind of just like, well, I need that external. Like I like interacting with people. I like talking to people. It's hard, especially now with quarantine. It's like even harder. I'm like, I'm oh, on the verge of tears. I can't.
There's let me go ahead and say this again. Like it's I know it's hard to go ahead and say like you aren't being exactly challenged and you're just working through it, and you're like it's no longer a challenge for you for certain. But that's because you've grown a lot already, and the things that you're finding aren't challenging you because you know a lot and you feel like you don't have to do as much. And like that's understandable, of course.
I was placed in beginners art classes because they're prerequisites and I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and that's like, yeah, it's understandable. But we need to recognize that like what you can do further on is like improve on your own craft on your own, and you're clearly doing that with the work that you're doing. Like you're outdoing yourself with nearly every single art piece like from there, and that's how it should be, because like the work in which you like put forward is like your next. What's the word? You're only as good as the last thing you've made. Like in terms of like that whole like bro sports talk or whatever. Like you're only as good as your last play or whatever that sort of thing is. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is like you've definitely improved in your art, even in the ways that like you've slowed down and like not taking things as serious. Like that you're still giving it effort, and you're still putting in like things you're doing, and you're just not passionate about them because they're not exactly things that you want to do. They're like things that you have to go ahead and do for class, and like that's understandable. I was the same way. C student here in high school, didn't care at all, and I just skated on by. But then I found my passion for audio, and that's when I really started to care about a lot of different things. And that's how it really that's what it really boils down to, is like working on that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Anyway, we talked a bit about like the history of you getting into art, and you're like you also include some of your other inspirations that you like made through and like made fan art for. But why don't we go ahead and talk about more stuff along the lines of like your process in which you like find something and you want to go ahead and create. Um, I know you said like you mostly do stuff involved with fan art, but like, is there anything specific that you like look for in characters that you draw, or like things that you make yourself? What is it that you look for before you go ahead and like decide on you want to make a piece?
Um, I mean, most of the things that like I do end up drawing for is like things that either got recommended to me by my friends, even though it takes a while because I'm like stubborn like that, or just things I kind of stumble upon. Uh, I know a lot of things that I tend to latch onto, especially character wise, is just straight up dumbass. That's my
Mm-hmm.
favorite archetype. It's just dumb, and I
Mm-hmm.
find it so fun to draw. I like drawing goofy people. It's so fun. Um, I'm just trying to think like how else to answer that because, hmm, uh, I think like most deciding factor is just like how much I really find myself enjoying. Because I do watch a lot of media. I take in a lot of content. Uh, it's just there's like a lot of things like I also like I do love, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
like I probably shouldn't draw that, or like I don't want to because I don't want to associate myself with those people. Like, because I adore like for instance I adore My Hero Academia, but like because of how widespread and because of the problems that come within the people who watch it. I'm like I follow a lot of people who do draw that, and I just see their comment section just filled with like hatred for drawing a certain thing, and it's kind of like I don't want to do that again. I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a hard pass. But like things like smaller like off. I drew a handful of things. I kind of want to draw it a little bit more. Not sure. I kind of died out of it. It's like I might be on the ADHD or like autism spectrum, but like I forget about things that I like about instantly. Like I get hyper obsessed and then dies. Then
Mm-hmm.
hyper dies. And I'm just at the moment, I think I'm like floating at the moment. I don't have anything in mind. I'm just kind of doing what I need to at the moment. But I tend to like I've noticed that I liked or like, I tend to latch on to things that are a bit more dead, which is kind of sad because it's like you want to see content, but it's dead or it's not like or it's very small.
Mm-hmm.
And then like right when it booms, I end up leaving and then I come back and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of content.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love indulging in other people's works. And I love doing that and I enjoy doing it with my friends. Like I know me and one of my friends will like read like fanfics aloud. Mostly joke fics, because that's the funnier ones.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just I also like finding like old content to like look at. It's great. And just like talking about it with like other people, like whether it's like a joke one or it's like, oh my goodness, why would they make that? That's really funny. I also like making really funny like shit posts.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have an Instagram highlight, just like a compilation of like all the ones I've made so far.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's called shitpost. Yeah, I see it.
That's culture, baby. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
when I die, they're gonna find this and they're gonna staple it to my grave.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of do things just because I can.
Mm-hmm.
Like for you, for instance, I just found you and I'm just like, oh, well, this is new and I'm listening to it. I can multitask, so I'm just gonna draw. Like,
Mm-hmm.
might as well.
Mm-hmm. Uh, why don't we go ahead and talk a bit more about like your like the process in which you make in which you make things
Mhm.
in more specific detail like how I've talked a bit about your like inspirations and the things in which you like you get into a peaked into a certain interest and you like obsess over it for a little bit and draw it out and then you like move on to something else, but why don't you go ahead and talk about like how is it that like in which in the process in which you do draw. I want to hear more about that as well.
Um, I guess like, but like anybody else, I just kind of like would end up like doodling or like I don't really have much in mind. I just kind of do. doodles and I'll be like, oh, that looks kind of cool, enlarge, and then I'll finish it. I feel like what I've picked up from actually on my art class is that maybe I should start thumbnailing a lot more to make it like a lot more compositionally sound. Still haven't done that yet. I kind of want to incorporate that a little bit more. I just know that I tend to experiment a whole lot. Like every day, like my style just shifts into a different direction, and then like to another one, and then another one. It kind of sucks when I don't finish something in all in one sitting. Because I'm very because like the next day I'll be like, oh, I don't like how I did that. Scrap that, redo it.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to just start something and I just immediately finish. I don't like saving it for later. Like if I'm already sitting here, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna finish it. I don't want to leave until it's done unless I have to use the restroom. Like I'm one of those people that will sit at my computer for like 10 hours straight just drawing, which is probably not healthy, but like I do it anyways. I know a majority of people do that too. But like I've noticed that like a lot of my other friends, they tend to just kind of do a lot of doodles before settling on like on a bigger picture. And my brain don't work like that. My brain's like, I know what I wanted when I want it, and I want it now. So it's just kind of like forced into a thing of just, I need to make a completed piece as fast as I can.
So you pretty much like you sit down, you finish it all like in one sitting. Like you don't take a break in between because like you want to make sure everything's finished before you like get back into it.
I just hate it every time I post something and I'll be like, I'd see something immediately wrong and I'm like, gosh darn it, I should have waited. The only thing I take breaks on is like school stuff, like for my graphic design project where it's like on the bigger end and I'm working in Illustrator and I hate it so much. I need to take a break or else I will like pull my hair out. But just for like my general like personal work, I just kind of I sit there and I do it all in one sitting.
Let's go ahead and talk a bit about your. I mentioned earlier in the podcast, like earlier before the podcast, that there's also a bit where we go ahead and talk about like things involving like your personal life, and why don't we go ahead and let everybody know who like a little bit further behind the veil of like the work that you do. Like you don't just post, you're not somebody who just only posts fan art. You're clearly into multiple different fandoms, and you're clearly like somebody who's like gone through quite a number of different things and changes throughout your life. And I wanted to go ahead and hear a bit more about that. So you cool with me like calling you your like your real name? Like
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Hi, Brittany. How's it going?
Hi. This is my customer service voice. How may I help you? What would you like to have today? Our flavor of the month is cotton candy crackle. Would you like to try it?
Ooh. How about you tell me your life story? Is that on the menu? Can I go ahead and order that?
Yeah, it's actually on discount at the moment. It's only $5.99.
Oh, perfect. They'll PayPal you later. But no, I'd love to hear more about like the person behind the artwork. I wanna that's like one of the most interesting points for like me as an interviewer is like hearing that sort of thing. So I'd love to go and hear that. Characters starting to pile up, aren't they? Pardon. What I'm saying is the average player doesn't need all these complicated and tedious dialogues. There should be more action and fewer questions. Who are you? I'm Zachary, the traditional items merchant that's necessary in every video game. I'll always find myself in places you're going to visit before you arrive. But enough of weather. I'm not one of those protagonists you need to listen to for hours. So, let's just move on to the middle bit. The middle bit? Hey everybody. Welcome back to The Middle Bit. I'm your host, Doc Conrad, And let's get things started, shall we? If you didn't know from the last episode, I have been streaming live on Twitch every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 10 p.m. EST, and Saturdays at a random point in time. If you are listening to this right now, in fact, later on today, I will be doing a stream. Not entirely sure what it's going to be on Saturday, but it's going to be a good one. I know that for certain. Have a lot of fun with those all the time. Having fun playing Minecraft, Among Us, all those sort of games. It's been quite a bit of fun playing games with fans and friends, people that I know, past guests of the podcast, and all that. So, if you want to go ahead and catch me live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 10 p.m. EST, that is twitch.tv/Dr. Conrad. Again, that is twitch.tv/Dr. Conrad. Also, I've been seeing a lot of support coming from some big fans of the podcast over the past few days, and it's been great to go ahead and see. I want to go ahead and get the ball rolling again, so if you want to go ahead and suggest this podcast to anyone that you think might enjoy it, please go ahead and do so. I'd love to go ahead and check it out, and if you're a fan of the show, feel free to go ahead and at me on Twitter at CommsOpenPodcast. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at CommsOpenPodcast, and you can go ahead and check me out there. Also, if you happen to be someone who's watching the podcast on YouTube, be sure to hit subscribe and hit the like button. It would really help me out quite a bit. And if you're listening on whatever app you use, I would love it if you would go ahead and follow the podcast. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcast, anything you want to go ahead and do, just go ahead and follow me there. That'd be amazing. And, yep. Alright, that looks like it's going to be it for the middle bit. You guys enjoy the rest of the interview. Take care. Alright, bye.
I'm just gonna start like right at the bat. I'm a very anxious individual, but I'm also like, I don't want to say like insane, but like I don't know. You just have one of those days where you're just like straight up like, I guess disassociating, where it's just kind of like everything's bonkers and it's great and it's very high energy, and then you get slammed of like very low energy days where you just can't get out of bed and you don't want to do anything for the next week. And it's so frustrating. I know growing up, I've always had like, despite being a only child, like biologically, I had my aunt growing up with me. She was 4 months younger than me, and we kind of grew up together in the same house for a while. And I had a lot of problems growing up. I had like ODD, I think. Like that's like one of the proper diagnoses I had. So I was very aggressive. I was very jealous. I was very aggro, and I didn't know why. I was just always upset, and I couldn't do nothing about it. And then I got into like, whenever I would get into something like, oh, when I was younger, I'd draw, and I'll draw it and I'll put it on the wall, because I had a little art wall of my mom, because she was a single mom. It's like, what else are you gonna do if you're 8-year-old kid? Make an art wall. And I remember my aunt, she'll draw sometimes, and I would get so mad that my mom let her put it on the wall. I'll get so mad that she got so much more recognition than me. She would get so much more recognition than me, and I just remember being like so upset and so just devastated that like nobody cared about me. And I kind of grew up with that little bit of ideology for a while. I remember I dropped drawing like once I moved with my dad and my stepmom in like 5th grade. I still would draw like for like, little projects and things, but that's about it. And then like I started getting into a little bit more in my 6th grade year, and then 7th grade hit, and I would do it. And it was like same thing happened when I moved back with my mom in 7th grade. Like she would do some, like my aunt would like draw as well. She'll see me draw. I didn't find out until later that she just did things that I did because she thought I was cool. I didn't know that. I just thought she hated me, and so I hated her. I don't hate her anymore. If she's listening to this, I don't hate you, Jessica. You're great. I love you. I just remember having very intense feelings as a small child, and she knew I hated her at the time. But yeah, it's kind of weird now that like artists are more the minority, at least in my upbringing, like school and stuff. That like being an artist was kind of like weird, and like, you always have like that, like where it's like, oh, it's a group project and you need to draw something, and like everybody like snaps their neck to look at you. because they knew that you drew. It's like I'll be like doodling in class, and I'm like, leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
I can do it. I'm gonna do this by myself. Leave go. Because I don't trust nobody. I'm also very control freaky in that way, where I don't like sharing the responsibilities if I know that I could just do it, or if I know that they're not gonna do much. And it's just kind of like I want this. Like I don't want to put my grade on the line because you don't do your work properly, or I don't want you to take over. I don't want you getting the free points because it's not fair. Um, I have a very hard time in teamwork activities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, college is kind of worse where it's like there's a lot more group stuff, and it's just like I'm the one who takes in all the information. I make the PowerPoint, I make the notes. Can you guys please just read the slides? And then you have that one person in the group who's on their phone during the presentation, and they look up and read off the slide as if they don't have a note card giving them the notes to say. Like that's infuriating. I end up taking over one of her slides to read because it was like we each had like two of them, and I end up reading like four of them
Mm-hmm.
because nobody does their job, and it's so frustrating. um, Man, my life is just filled with just frustration, just a lot of anger,
Mm-hmm. I think that's
a
mostly
lot
because
of anger.
I think it's mostly because you're right now you're fixated on that as well, and that's
Of
understandable.
course.
Like it's something that like it's something when you reflect on it, you go based off of the emotions in which you feel, and then you like recognize and try to recall things involved with that.
Hmm.
But of course, there's like been parts where you've like fully there've been parts where like it's been a lot easier and more enjoyable. I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
just I know as well, like because I do furry art. I'm very embarrassed to say that. I'm very embarrassed for people to know that I do that, especially in person.
Mm-hmm.
Like things like that, or like drawing things for a certain fandom. I'm very easily flustered. I don't like people like who I know in person knowing that I do those things, especially people in college. But then they find my art account and they're like, "Oh, I really like your art. Like you didn't tell me you like did this stuff. Like I also do it. It's so weird making connections like that."
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so used to being like embarrassed about what I do
Mm-hmm.
and like why I do things just because I find it enjoyable because of like this the stigma around certain things. Like
Yeah.
with furries, everyone thinks that you're a horny bastard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I'm a bastard, but like not because of that.
No, that's I think that comes a lot with I think that comes a lot with the process of like growing up, especially
Mhm.
the things that a lot of people like face and they face ridicule for. I've known a lot of people who have made art in the past and like I've been good friends with who have been who have also been in the same boat as you, involved with like their art being they're feeling ashamed for their feeling ashamed that they enjoy their art. But as somebody who has been like a constant source of like I think the reason why I made this podcast was because like and something like deep down in me a lot of my friends who like were initially who were like embarrassed about like showing their art um they were willing to go ahead and confide in me and like show me that art, and it's one of my favorite things about it is like seeing them glow up when they finally get to realize like they can be open about things that they're most passionate about and creative with. And a lot of
Yeah.
people like don't realize like how important that is for artists, especially those that have been like ridiculed previously from like the work that they've done. And I'm and like they've been like told like things have been like negative, like they point out like negative things about their art even if they're just learning or they do something out of passion or something like that. It's a beautiful art is a beautiful thing in that regard of like you
Mhm.
create something based off of like passion that you make, and have people like boil it down and simplify it is not what I think a good artist should feel. Nobody should feel that. Nobody should feel that way about something they create via passion,
Mhm.
especially something that's like not harming anyone. Like in terms of like art, this sort of thing does not harm anyone. This sort of thing like is only meant to go and uplift and bring light to different people. And it's what's one of the things that's most important of like being able to show it and create it. And I'm glad now that you're able to go ahead and see that there's like going to be a shift in terms of like the art in which you make. Being able to go ahead and realize that like your art is your like you said you of course the validation's important. Like your art is wonderful, but it's also important to realize that like there's been a shift in culture, I think, at least a little bit,
Oh,
towards supporting artists and being able to be like, yeah, your art is wonderful. Like that's like that, like being able to go ahead and encourage people, in fact, who are maybe not as confident in their work. And I think that's very important for other people to understand. Like, support your local artists, guys. Like they've been through like some different things involved with people who didn't understand the work in which they make, and now you can go ahead and like fully appreciate that work. It can be, I don't know, like it can be recognized as like good. That's what's most important. Like, and it touches back on what we said earlier. Like you of course had like maybe a little bit of like issues in the past with like different people inside of like fandoms and whatnot, like talking about like the things in which you draw, but like I'm guessing like one of the things they never said was like the art's bad. It's just it wasn't what they wanted. That's the main thing.
yeah.
Like your art's always quality. Your art's always been quality, and it's going to improve even further. Like there's a lot that you need to like. There's a lot that you need to recognize. So I understand like being nervous about that sort of thing. That's like a whole other can of worms that like needs to be that possibly needs to be addressed by like people who are more professional than me. I'm just a guy who talks to the microphone. But I want
And
to
I'm
let
just
you,
the kid who
yeah,
draws on a tablet.
yeah. But what you need to recognize that like the art that you make is wonderful, and I don't think that you should. Not to say that like this is going to be a cure-all. Don't feel bad, but like you
Don't feel
shouldn't
as
feel,
bad.
yeah, you should not feel ashamed about the art in which you make, because of how like no not only how good it is, but how much of a impassioned person that you are, and expressing that sort of passionate that passionate like expressing that passion in any sort of way is a great thing. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to recognize and like understand, that it is like important for other people to hear, and important for other people to see as well.
Yeah. I'm very thankful that I've had like a best friend of like 6 years, almost 7 years. I don't know. I met her on DeviantArt in my like eighth grade, and we've been best buds ever since. And we've been supporting each other, and it's so great. And I love her so much. Can I give her a shout out?
Yeah, for certain.
It's a garden.mouse on Instagram. Unless she changes it in the future, then RIP your shout out. But like, I adore her so, so much. Maya, you're great. And I wish that like she's the one that actually usually like talks me down. It's like, man, like it doesn't matter that like you're very experimental or your like art's very flexible. Like she's the one who tells me that's when I see like when I see two pieces by you, like even like by different like time, like one made like a month ago and one made now, she still is like, that's your art though. And I always feel bad for not having like consistency, like because I experiment so much, and like I don't feel bad for like other people. Like I kind of feel bad for myself for not finding a good middle ground for like everything that I want to do. But I keep doing things outside the box. I experiment so much. I've done like I have like a history of like doing things like within the art. Like I've done band, I've done sculpting, I've done oh, obviously like traditional media and digital media, and
Mhm.
it's just like I experiment so much, and it's cool and all, and it's great having like kind of useful like information about each thing and how it transfers over surprisingly, of like realizing like, oh, like this thing I learned in sculpting and like having like I don't know, this divot makes it kind of transfers over a little bit more to like shading and like the face or something. I don't know.
Mhm.
I just I feel bad a lot of the time creating, but I probably shouldn't. I just do, and I think that
Mhm.
just might be like mostly anxiety talking and just like not having a whole lot of support. Like
Mhm.
my parents are supportive. Don't get me wrong. They like my dad's the one who convinced me to pursue like an art degree because I was actually gonna be a STEM major. I was gonna major in biology or like marine biology or something like that. And I remember partway through the semester last year, uh, when he had a like how his heart rate was going way too fast. It was like way too high, and I had to meet him up at a hospital to find out what was going on. I was the only person who showed up, and we like I was just crying, and he like talked to me for like an hour, and I was like just talking to him. He's like, "Do you think you'd be happy if you majored in biology? Do you see yourself being happy in that?" And I was just like, Nope.
Mhm.
All the while I'm just sobbing as I'm like thinking my dad's about to die. He didn't. He's good. He's chill. I think he's doing Instacart right now.
Mhm.
And I switched my major to graphic design, and it's just I don't want to be a graphic design major, but I'm going to community college, so all the art majors are very, very limited right now.
Mhm.
But it's just wow, there's a lot of emotion behind art. I've always thought that like I don't it's like when I create things, I don't create things because of a meaning. That's what I find frustrating actually with like a few of my classes. Like, what's the meaning behind your piece? Like, why'd you like what was the intention? And for me, it's like, well, it's an assignment. I want a good grade.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like, especially with my actual previous presentation for my portfolio, um, I had portfolio for my final for drawing 101 or whatever, drawing 100 and like oh 03 or whatever. I don't know.
Mhm.
I like I was actually talking to a friend the night before time like I don't know how I'm gonna describe it. I don't know like what about the meaning. I don't really have a meaning. I just thought it like, kind of looked cool because I made like a reference to uh Rene Margaret. I don't remember how to pronounce his last name.
Mhm.
The son of man with the apple in front of the face.
Yeah.
And then when I had to talk about it, talk about my final. Oh boy.
Uh,
Okay, Discord just cut out again.
that's
When I had
fine.
to talk about my final, I was able to like while I was just trying to like talk about like the gears of my brain started working out like the meaning for me behind it. And I was like, oh, there was meaning. I just don't think about it.
Mhm.
Like I don't think about these sort of things. I draw because I like it, and then I realized like a week later it's like, oh wow, that did mean something to me,
Mhm.
like a lot. Just I
Mhm.
think my brain's just too active, and that's why.
There is a lot that goes on behind the background of like the subconscious. I don't want to get too philosophical, but there's a lot that goes on in that regard. And I definitely think that you've realized that like the work that which you do is like there's always of course a reason and a meaning behind everything that you create. That which is like is just beyond what you like purposely do. Like the passion which which you make comes from somewhere. Like there's a reason
Mhm.
why you like the individual things that you do. And even if still like the reason why you choose certain ways in which to express certain things or the colors that you choose, even if it's not fully conscious, it is like there is something beyond like that which you fully recognize and can comprehend, and you can only really see it after you finish it being done, like after like a week, you said. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just it's strange how you like. You ever have like those growing up in like your English history or like, your English class where it's like, can you describe what the author's intention behind this particular line was? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like the one that just kind of sits there and I just stare at it because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
it's the dog was brown.
Ah.
It was brown. That's dog color.
Man,
And it's like, no, but like, what's the meaning? Like, why is the dog brown? Like, what does brown represent? And I'm just like, brown. It represents brown. Brown's a good color.
Yeah.
Uh, oh, that reminds me. I did take theater where I actually learned like stagecraft, where I learned a little bit more about like stage lighting and how like colors affect the mood and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's legit. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's real. It's like I had to watch a few plays like for like whether it's just to support my fellow like theater kids or just because I wanted to. It was
Mm-hmm.
interesting like noticing like how like oh the stage light shifted to like a deeper red and then the girl screamed and it's a lot more horrifying than if it was like blue,
Mm-hmm.
like that sort of thing. And it's just it's weird finally picking up on that. Like it feels like way too late. I feel like I'm so late to the event and I did not bring any Starbucks. I'm so sorry.
It's not in a like my friend said. It's not in like it's not in an iced coffee like cup, so that way they can tell how late you were with like how much is
Yeah.
actually drunk from it. Oh man, no, I'm glad that you're being able to recognize the things more and more, and it's never too late to go ahead and learn. Like
Mhm.
that's like that like even from beyond college, I'm learning so much about like the process in which like artists like create and like the inspirations
Yeah.
that they hold and everything. Like that's it's such a you never really stop the learning process in what you do. So you're never
Oh
late
no.
for the things you're never late for the things you learn. Um Now, that being said, we are running a little bit. We're not running late, but we're getting more and more towards the end of the
Yeah.
podcast. It's been almost an hour. I want to go ahead and summarize. With go ahead and summarize with this.
Okay.
Brittany, I want to say that
Yes.
you have been an excellent guest. Your story is one that I'm guessing a lot of people have faced before, that of like creativity and passion while having like problems in which you like you see something that you're incredibly passionate about, but it can fade like instantly. You've gone through a lot involved, like the work that you do, and like sometimes not having people be as supportive of you online, or maybe not even like IRL, like from different sort of like people that you've met. But
Mm-hmm.
you've always had this sort of charm that's unique to you. That's like the most important thing. It's absolutely wonderful. I love seeing the work that you've done and how you've grown even further. I appreciate you for what you've done for me specifically, like the work that you've like done, the fan art that you did. Like it's amazing that you were even go ahead and consider me to be like something that you're like enjoy so much that you had to create something for it. That you have no idea how much that means to me as like as a creator. And I feel like that there's nothing more I want to give to you than like a chance for myself to give you back something. So the way that I'm going to try to do it is by having you on the podcast and let people understand the process in which you make, and like get to hear a little bit more about you, the work that you've done, and the work that you'll hopefully continue to do, because like it has always been amazing. No matter what sort of thing that you make, consider me a fan. I'm going to be a fan for a long time, and consider me a friend as well. Yeah, there.
Oh
I'm so glad that you're able to go ahead and like you're I'm so glad your father helped you like push you more down this path to focusing on your art. I hope that you can go ahead and make it worthwhile for yourself, and hopefully you'll be able to go ahead and grow even further as an artist, like even more so than you have right now. It's just absolutely amazing, the work that you've done, and I hope that people can go ahead and like support you further. And you can follow her. You can follow them. You like any pronoun, it's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
You can follow them on Instagram and Twitter at MunchyBones. And yeah, I want to say that this has been an excellent episode of Commissions Open. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Oh no. I was expecting to be so emotional about this. I wasn't expecting to go off either.
It's fine.
It feels like a therapist session.
That's how it.
Or a good,
not only
not therapy. It's just so release. I'm also very, very sweaty right now because I've been shaking.
You're fine.
God.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh my god. Man, I was not expecting, like, after just drawing something for you, I was not expecting just like, hey, you want to be on my podcast? And I'm like, huh? Excuse me? Pardon? I need to draw you at least like 3 things before you ask me that question. That was so instant. I was caught off guard.